Here's something nobody says out loud. The emails that take longest at work are rarely the important ones. It's not a big project proposal. It's not a contract negotiation. It's usually that follow-up that you've been sitting on for 3 days because you can't figure out how to start without sounding it too passive-aggressive. Or the just circling back email that you rewrote 6 times because every version you write either sounds too pushy or too weak. And at the end of the hour, you haven't done any work. You wrote one email. I'm Suzy, and I simplify AI for real life. This is the first episode of a new series in the channel, AI for 9-to-5ers. And we are starting here with a thing that quietly drains more of your day than anything else. Here's what's actually happening. Writing work emails is not a writing problem. Actually, I want to say that again, because I think this is the thing that explains why every
Write better emails
tip out there doesn't work. Writing work emails is not a writing problem. It's a thinking problem. When you sit down at work to write an email, you're not just choosing words. You're navigating. You're thinking, how does this person perceive me? What do they need to hear right now? What do I actually want from this? And how can I say the truth without it landing it wrong? There's a lot of invisible work happening underneath the 2-sentence email. And when you use AI the way that most people use it, which is typing,
write me a professional email,
and hoping for the best, you get an answer that is technically correct, but completely hollow. It starts with, I hope this finds you well, and it ends with, please don't hesitate to reach out. It could have been written by anyone about anything to anyone. But that's not an AI problem. That's a context problem, and it's completely fixable. Here's what I figured out, and it changed completely how I work. AI doesn't write bad emails because it lacks the ability of writing. It writes bad emails because you handed a situation with no information and expected it to make good decisions for you. Think about this way. If you ask a colleague to write you an email, they would immediately ask you, who is it for? What happened? What do you want them to do? And what tone do you want it to sound like? They need that to help you. They can't do anything without that information. AI is the same. The only difference is that AI is not going to ask you those questions. AI is going to guess it. And its guess is always generic, corporate, soulless version. So the skill is not learning how to prompt perfectly. The skill is how to give it context. And once you do that, the output changes completely. I'm currently job searching, which means I'm writing a lot of emails. Thank you notes after interviews, follow up on applications, message to people in my network that I haven't spoke to for years. But before I started doing this right, every one of them felt like pulling teeth. Not because I don't know how to write. I do. But because every email had a relationship inside of it. Something that could land differently than what I mean. When I started giving AI the full picture of what was happening before asking it to write an email for me, everything changed. Not because AI suddenly became smarter, but because I stopped asking it to guess. There are 4 pieces of context that transforms any work email. 4 things. That's it. The first one is the relationship, not the person's name, the relationship. Is this someone you have worked with for years, or is someone that you're contacting for the first time? Is this a peer, a manager, a vendor, a client? The relationship shapes everything about the tone before you even write a word. The second one is the actual situation. Not I need to follow up, but what is really going on. What happened? What was supposed to happen? Where things stand on right now. One honest paragraph, specific and plain. The third is what you want from this email. An answer, an action, a decision, a confirmation. Do you want to close something or open something? This is the goal. Without this, AI will write an email that is complete but has no direction. The fourth is the emotional register. Not just professional, something more specific. Warm but firm. Apologetic without being self-deprecating. Friendly but clear because this needs to move forward. Just one sentence about how this needs to feel. You give AI these 4 things, and the result is something that sounds like it came from a person that knows how to handle situations well, because it does. Let me show you this in a real situation. You sent a proposal 2 weeks ago. No response. You had a good call beforehand. They seem interested, but now there's silence. You need to follow up, but you don't want to seem desperate. And you really need to know if this is moving forward because you need to plan your week. What most people type: write me a professional follow-up email about a proposal I sent. What comes back is a template.
I hope you're doing well. I wanted to follow up on a proposal I sent on date X.
Nobody's reading that and feeling anything. Now what you actually give AI. I sent a proposal 2 weeks ago after a call that went really well. They seemed interested, but I haven't heard back. I need to follow up, but I don't want to seem anxious or pushy. I genuinely need a yes or no so I can manage my schedule. My schedule. Tone: warm, confident, direct, short. The draft that comes back references the conversation. It gives them a clear path to respond. It's not apologetic. It doesn't hover. It sounds like it was written by someone who is busy and values their own time, which is exactly the impression you want to set with a new client. Before I show you the second example, I want to add something that I think is truly underused. Once you have a draft and you did your changes, you can ask AI to check it before you send. I do this with anything that has real stakes. I paste the draft back in and I ask one question. Before I send this, how will this land emotionally? Does anything sound passive-aggressive, unclear, or blunt? What's the one thing you would change? And sometimes it catches something I completely miss it. A sentence that reads natural to me, but could read cold to someone who doesn't know my tone. A phrase that accidentally implies blame. It takes 30 seconds, and what it prevents is sometimes a conversation that would have taken 45 minutes and a lot of awkwardness to untangle. And this is what I mean when I say AI changes how the day feels, not just how it runs. Now here's the one that actually separates people who are good at navigating work from people who are just good at their job. Something went wrong. A deadline was missed. A miscommunication caused a problem. You need to acknowledge it, address it, and move forward without it becoming bigger than it needs to be. But you also can be so breezy about it that it looks like that you don't take it seriously. This is the email that most people either over-apologize for 3 paragraphs or say almost nothing hoping it goes away quickly. Neither works. What you should do instead: you give AI, I need to write an email to my manager acknowledging that I missed a deadline on a report. Part of the reason was waiting on data from another team, but I also could have flagged the risk earlier and I didn't. I want to take responsibility without making too many excuses. Acknowledge the impact briefly and give her a clear updated timeline. Tone: professional, direct, accountable. Not over-apologetic, not defensive. What comes back is measured. It takes ownership. It doesn't spiral into self-flagellation, and it doesn't minimize the problem. It closes with a clear next step, and it sounds like an email from someone who can handle things. And that matters, because the email you send after something goes wrong tells your manager more about you than the mistake did. Now here's what I think is really happening when you use AI this way consistently. You stop spending your mental energy on writing, and you start spending it where it really matters: the thinking. on what you want to say, how this relationship works, what outcome you need. That's the part only you can do. The structural writing is the part that AI can handle. The people at work who seem confident in their communication, the ones whose emails always land, the ones you kind of want to write like, they're not necessarily better writers than you. They're better at knowing what they want before they start. And that clarity, the ease of putting a clear thing into clear words, that's what AI gives you when you use it with enough context. The gap between I know what I want to say and the email that is sent gets very short. And that gap, when it's wide, it's very expensive. Not just in time, but in mental load. In the background hum of things you haven't dealt with yet. Oh, and if you're one of those people that prefers to say it out loud instead of writing, I started using a tool called Whisperflow. It's a voice dictation app that works across everything. AI tools, emails, note apps, messages. You just talk and it types for you, accurately. Not the kind you spend 2 minutes after just fixing every other word. The link is in the description. Now the third and last example. The email that's been living in your chest and in your mind. You know, that one. The one that's been sitting in your drafts for weeks. You open it, reread it, feel something vague and heavy, and close it again. Maybe it's the feedback response that you disagree with what was said and you can't figure out how to say that professionally. Maybe it's the message to your manager about something that needs to change. Maybe it's the client conversation about scope that has been ballooning for weeks and you haven't said anything because you don't want to seem difficult. You give AI this.
I have an email I've been avoiding. A client sent over a massive list of quick feedback items on a Friday afternoon, but I've already reached the limit of the project scope we agreed upon. If I do all of this for free, I'm basically working for $5 an hour this weekend. Here's what I actually want them to understand or do. I want them to know I'm happy to make these changes, but because they fall outside of our original contract, there will be an additional fee and a new timeline. Here's what I'm afraid of getting wrong. I'm worried I'll sound difficult or nickel and diming them, and they might not want to work with me again.
Something about seeing a draft makes it real. It's not a heavy thing in your head anymore. It's a starting point. A piece of text you can actually move around and adjust to make it yours. The email that's been taking space for a week is done. That's not a small thing. That's clarity. Which brings to something I want to tell you today, because it just launched and I'm really excited about it. I put together a free resource called the Mental Clarity Guide. This is not another collection of AI prompts. It's a set of tools I actually use to solve the problems that we've been talking today. The mental load of work, the things that float, the decisions you keep putting off, the feeling that your brain is already full before the day even started. It's short, practical, and it's designed for everyone that is already stretched thin and don't want to add another thing to learn on their list. If today resonated with you, the Mental Clarity Guide is the next logical step. Comment clarity and I'll send you the link. One last thing, the method I show you here today works with any professional writing. Slack messages, LinkedIn outreach, performance review comments. Anywhere, the tone of what you write determines how you are perceived. But I want to leave you with something that I think is the bigger idea underneath all this. The emails that are hardest to write are hard because of what's inside them. A relationship you're trying to protect, a boundary you're afraid of setting, a truth you need to say without breaking something. AI doesn't take that away. But it takes one very specific thing off your plate. The pressure to think clearly and write well at the same time. You don't have to do both at the same time anymore. You think first, you get a draft, and then you make it yours. And then what's left is the version of you that is actually dealing with the situation properly. Not a version that is paralyzed trying to find the right words. And in the next episode of 9 to 5ers, we're going to talk about something that most people don't realize it's eating their time. The moments at work that you're not stuck because you lack information. You're stuck because the situation is really complex and you can't think your way through it alone. AI handles that differently than most people expect. That one is coming soon. Subscribe so you catch it. And if this helped, send to that one person at work. You know who. The one who still spend an hour on a 2-line email. They'll thank you. See you in the next one. Or is the two-sentence manager. Two-sentence manager. Two-sentence message to your manager. Before I send this, how will it where it is eating most of their time. It's not that hard, Suzy. Okay.